Good evening, everybody. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of Public Law 1975 entitled Open Public Meetings Act, Hardison Township Board of Education posted a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting at the office of the Hardison Township Board of Education and on the district's website and mailed to the New Jersey Herald and to the office of the municipal clerk of Hardison Township. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Verso.
Mrs. Donna Carey.
Here.
Mr. Nick Demsack.
Here.
Mr. Brian Drellick.
Here.
Mr. Ron Hoffman is absent. Mrs. Dana Kelza.
Here.
Mrs. Susan Lucarelli is absent. Ms. Clarissa Murata, absent. Mr. Edward Riley.
Here.
Ms. Kelly Stoll.
Here.
We have quorum.
Excellent. First, is there any public comment tonight on board agenda items only? Hearing none. Moving on to the workshop portion of tonight's meeting. Before we get to the budget overview and discussion, a couple weeks ago at the reorg, I had said I was going to wait and speak to the board members about what committee assignments and what appointees and delegates certain board members would be interested in. So after getting feedback from everybody, I'm pleased to recognize, although both are actually absent tonight, pleased to recognize Ron Hoffman, who will continue to serve us as the New Jersey School Board's delegate this coming year, and Robin Murata, who served last year with the Sussex County Ed Services Committee, and after speaking with her, she's delighted to continue serving in that role this year. So again, they're both not here tonight, but I would like to thank and congratulate both Ron and Robin on their willingness to take an even deeper role this year in board matters. So with those appointees set up, and for the board members who are present, I did share with you guys today the committee assignments once again. And in addition to that, below that, I wanted to print it out and actually forgot, were the board meeting dates and committee dates for this year. So hopefully that helps organize your schedule a little bit. And obviously we'll do a rework again at the annual retreat at the end of June, where we'll formalize the meeting dates from July through December. But at least that sets the table for the next several months of when regular meetings are, when the budget meetings are like tonight, and when the committee meetings are. So, any questions about that? All right, hearing none, I will turn this over to Dr. Ryder and or Mrs. Verso to kick off our budget season.
Hello, hello. All right, thanks everybody for coming. And we're going to follow the same format as we had in the past, I don't even know how many years. And what I mean by that is we give I think it's important to put everybody on the same page before we start discussing, everything. And what that means is, what are our strategic goals? What are our district goals? What are the current programs and curriculum that we have? What does our current state of affairs look like? What that does is it puts us all on the same page. You just watch this wire, Brian.
No.
Okay. Because I think what that does is it puts us all on the same page. It puts us in sync. And then from there, we can give some early projections about some numbers that we're looking at. And then when I'm finished, what I like to do is really turn it over to the Board of Education for Ms. Verso and I to hear all of your thoughts, all of your concerns, all of your wishes, all of your wants, your needs, and so forth, and then to go from there. And then when we come back in February for the workshop, what we have then is a complete list of notes and feedback from the Board of Education. And then we also have we're 1 month closer to getting a better projection of costs, right? A lot of those things that we don't know yet that are out of our control, but we try to estimate the best we can because we have to start with something, right? And then we get pretty close by the end of February. all right? So that's where we are. That's the plan of tonight, and that's the goal. So the first thing is just to review what our strategic goal, what our strategic plan looked like when we did this in 2022, right? And we don't have to get too much into it, but that just puts us on equal footing. Goal number one, individual students and accountability to create an environment that provides opportunities and enables students to take ownership and responsibility for their learning. That can look in many different, that can look in a variety of ways, right? Goal number two, community involvement and outreach. To provide local community members and businesses the opportunity to provide programs and activities that will encourage students to explore ways to develop their personal interests and into vocational paths. Goal number three, parental involvement and investment, which means to increase opportunities for parental involvement in the school and investment in their children's education. And lastly, access and equity. Maintain equitable distribution of learning for all students across all curricular areas and ensure that all students have access to learning opportunities within the school. So when you have a strategic plan, what you try to do is every year when you create district goals, this is one of the things that is your anchor. You come back to this and say, okay, when we met in 2022, this is what the community deemed most important, right? And then we try to, of course, change with the times and to whatever our pressing needs are, we try to address, but we also don't forget what the community said when we came out for multiple sessions in 2022, right? We try to meet those needs. And then the district goals for this year, right, we have 5. So first has to do with academic excellence, increase test scores, and supporting teachers and expand learning opportunities, right? That should be a goal every year, of course. Goal number 2, attendance and engagement. Increase attendance and decrease absenteeism by working with families and encouraging and inspiring students. Goal number 3, family and community partnership. Deploy new opportunities and methods to connect, learn, and partner. 4, positive school culture, staff collaboration. These are all good things, right? Increase collaboration, camaraderie, celebration, build professional and personal capacities. And lastly, facilities and finance. Determine the district's pressing and future needs and facilities maintenance. Identify needs for improvement to our technology, our campus, our learning spaces, and explore methods for funding those needs, right? And the reason why we talk about all these things is because when you're thinking about the budget and you're thinking about we have a limited amount of resources, right? We have certain staffing, we have certain dollars, we have certain state aid, we have certain amount of money that we can ask the local residents to provide, right? And they have to somehow all meet the goals that the community and the Board of Education established. That's the goal. So this is an overview of what our schools look like in a one-slide deal curricularly. K-8, we have K-8 language arts and math programs. We continue to provide professional development and coaching in both language arts and math. At the elementary school, we have 2 full-time interventionists. We have a math coach. We have a reading specialist. At the middle school, we have the same thing, it's just structured a little differently. We have math intervention for grade 5, 1 teacher, and for grades 6 through 8, we have another math intervention teacher. And we also have an ELA and a Wilson intervention teacher, and we're also doing language arts tier 3 intervention at the middle school. For special services, this is, I'll say special services and interventionist is probably Hardison's, probably some of our greatest strengths that we've built over the years. I think we could go into any community and pride ourselves and talk confidently about how we meet the needs of all kids, We do a great job of identifying their strengths and weaknesses and building off of that every year. So for special services, we have our own occupational therapists. We have a certified occupational therapist assistant. We have our own behaviorists. We have an emotional regulation room, one at the elementary, one at the middle school. Elementary is a little newer than the middle school, but these are still fairly new programs. We have a multiple disabilities room. We have an LLD room. These are both schools. English as a second language, these numbers have increased dramatically in our district within the past couple of years, where perhaps in the past we've had a handful, 2, 3, any given year, to now, I don't even know what our numbers are, 10, 15, 20, enough that legally we were required to establish a program and hire a certified ESL teacher to meet the needs of our multilingual students. So that population is definitely increasing in Hardiston.
Does that mean they come here? Like they speak?
It means right. Mr. Reinley asked, does that mean they come here with English, limited English, right? Sometimes it means they don't speak English at all. Sometimes it means they don't speak English in their house, so they're not 100% fluent, all different kind of varieties. And in the languages, I wish I had a list, but it's not just one language. We're talking like 5, 6, 7 different languages with students coming in, right? And the goal of special services is to provide the least restrictive environment to students and reducing out-of-district placements, of course, when appropriate. Another thing that Hardiston champions is our preschool. When we were eligible, we applied for and received preschool expansion aid. And we partner with William Patterson University to make sure that we have a quality program. We grew from 24 students in 2 half-day programs just a couple of years ago to 60 students, then we expanded to 75, and this year we expanded to 90. And that means 6 full-day classrooms. 6 classrooms, full day, full school day. And next year, we are going to stay at 90 for another year. There's something called a preschool universe, which means you take the enrollment of your first grade and you double it, and that is the estimated amount of preschool students within your community. And that can change, obviously, from year to year. But according to the universe, we should be able to go to a 7th classroom, but we struggled a little bit. I don't know if struggle is the right word, but we barely were able to grow to 90 students. So instead of putting out the funds for a 7th classroom and not knowing where we're going to stand, we're going to hold steady for one more year at 90 and see what our numbers look like. I think that's the responsible way to do it at this point. All right.
What's the ages of those?
Preschool 3 and 4. So it's 3 and 4-year-olds. So some of the current facilities projects that we've done. We've done the security radio system. That's in place. Both schools are up and running. We have the best communication between schools and the police department that we've ever had, which is fantastic. We've increased the use of Wallkill Valley Regional High School transportation, which has saved us thousands and thousands of dollars. And most of this has to do with our special education transportation costs. And that has great potential to save us more as long as we keep working together, right? And another huge win that we had for this year was air conditioning at Hardison Elementary School, right? So, huge wins. But like when you own a house, it never ends. There's always more things to do, right? You think about your house, the job is never finished, and the same holds true for schools. So you can read the list of things. Middle school is going to need some TLC, new fire panel, boilers, roof repairs, lintels, more radios, right? These are some of the things, the most important things, most important pressing things that are on our list, right? For years we spent a lot of time, money, and energy at the elementary school with great reasons too. I mean, once upon a time, not too long ago, we replaced the elementary boilers. We redid or sealed up all of the flat roofs for all of the separate roofing of the elementary school. Like I said, we did air conditioning. We fixed all the underground drainage in the parking lot because everything was collapsed. And if anybody remembers the elementary school in the past, whenever there was a huge amount of rain, the parking lot was, what's it called? It was pitched, basically, so the water would go right against the library. And we even had, years ago, when I first got here, a lawsuit for a woman who had tripped and hurt herself very badly with all the cracking and unevenness of the parking lot. So fixing that was a huge, huge undertaking, and ultimately it was a win and something legally that was pretty important that we do, and we did. There's a lot of, there's a much bigger table that we could have created, and we will in February, but this just gives a snapshot of some of the things that most people talk about, okay? Most people talk about how much does the local tax levy pay for the school, and what do we get from the state, right? There are some districts where this is completely reversed, where the state will provide so much more state aid and the local contribution might be a lot less. It depends really where you live and what kind of municipality you come from. But this is Hardison, right? So you can kind of see a 3-year snapshot of the local tax levy, right? Total revenues from state sources. And that's always the big question mark. Local tax levy, you can always predict on some level. If the board says that they want to do a 2% tax levy, well then you can calculate 2% from 11,297,000 and figure that out, right? The thing that you can't totally predict is the total revenues from state sources. And that's always the big question mark, right? For not last year or the year before, but for maybe, I think, the 7 years preceding that, Hardison received decreasing amounts of state aid every year for 7 years, right? And that was part of the funding formula that you might have read about. That was an exercise in trying to make funding fair for all districts. So in essence, the state was saying that Hardison was overfunded for many years, and that's why we would get less and less. And then other places were underfunded, so they would take basically Hardison money and put it where the districts were underfunded, according to their formulas, right? Last year, we received more state aid. I think that was for the first time in a long time, right? And I'm sure it's still not up to the level where we were a decade ago, but it was still an increase, right? And the total operating budget, you can see a 3-year snapshot, 14.5. That was probably due to some of the projects that we were doing. And then it decreased to the 13.9, and then a slight increase to 14.079. This information was taken from the Taxpayer's Guide to Education Spending. It's online. Anybody can see it, anybody can look it up. It basically has, it's a huge database where all the school districts, public school districts in New Jersey, you can see where they all rank financially, not academically. This all has to do with finances and efficiencies and comparing like-sized school districts to each other. So in our comparison group, you can see it up top, it's K-8 districts with between 401 to 750 students. That's partisan size. So these comparisons are for that. So,
If you were under 401s, you fall into a different category?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. You fall into a different category because it wouldn't make sense for like us to compare ourselves with the one school district that has 250 students, you know? And then, as you know, there's huge districts out there too that we don't have a lot in common with.
Excuse me, could you tell us how many students we currently have?
I don't know exactly. It's probably in Orthic 620, around 620, right? Around there. And it's all in the board drive folder. Those reports are every month, so all you got to do is go into Google Drive and look it up, and you can see the exact number. Okay. Let's see here. So, in all of these things, in classroom instructional spending, right, we're 27th out of 60th, so we're somewhere in the middle. Instructional cost, 28th out of 63rd, 54th percentile. These are all pretty good places where we want to be, right? We want to be in. We never want to spend the most, but we want to be in the upper half of how our district efficiently spends for instructional spending. We want most of our costs going to instruction. We don't want it going to overhead. We want it to go into where it matters most, instruction, right? Our operating costs, 55th percentile in total per pupil operating costs, demonstrates fiscal discipline. Spending consistency, Hardison scores above 95% on NJ DOE spending balance indicators, reflecting stable and well-aligned budget decisions across major cost areas. One thing to think about with this is this just measures efficiencies, right? Meaning that if we have a goal or an effort as a Board of Education or a district administration to do something instructionally that's going to put us on the map in this area, whatever that is, right? Then we would intentionally spend more money in instructional spending in order to get there. This just measures efficiencies. It doesn't measure possibilities, all right? That probably doesn't make any sense, but this is just talking about the efficiencies of how we spend, and it gives a snapshot of that, and fiscally, we're where we should be, I believe.
I think you compare that to how well we're doing according to the state rankings, would show us that we're doing pretty damn well. When we're in the 55th percentile, but we have the #1 elementary school in the county. Is my off-the-cuff response to that. So.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, and what Mr. Demsack is referring to is last spring, the Department of Education came out with their summative ratings, which measures student achievement, student growth, and chronic absenteeism, and improvement in that area. And out of all Sussex County schools, not just Hardison-sized schools, but all schools, we're talking Sparta School District, we're talking from Vernon, Sparta, Apacon, to even smaller schools, Stillwater, Stanhope, etc. Hardison Elementary had the best summative score in the entire county among those measures, right? And what Mr. Demsack is saying that, and we're somewhere in the middle as far as our spending. I think we're in a good place, and I think it's efficient spending, but we're not, in the 99th percentile of spending in order to get that rank. Right.
That's it. Thank you.
Right. Tax levy impact. This is by no means saying, yes, we are going to 2%, we're going to 1%. This is just to give an idea of what 2% looks like. 2% is the cap that school districts have to say you are allowed to raise 2% of your local tax levy, right? So what that looks like is we take $11,297,000, and that is from the user-friendly budget that is online on our website for the 25-26 school year. We multiply that by 2%, and that comes to $225,940, a little under 226. Let's just call it 226. And it's just important to note that when school districts do this, it doesn't mean they have $226,000 more to play with. You know, it means that we have a little bit of wiggle room to keep up with the ongoing expenses that we all face as individuals. Schools face them too, and we'll get into what some of those increases look like. All right, so here are some of the very early projections. These numbers change the more we get into the budget season. Okay, so by February, some of these numbers may change with more information that we get. These numbers come from our business administrator, Sue Verso, who attends county meetings with all of the business administrators in the county who have more information out there, you know, than we have, and this is where the numbers come from. So what they're saying so far is to expect flat state aid. So what does flat mean? It means the same as it was the year before. Okay? Flat in my mind is good. Flat is better than less. You know, so that would be a win as far as I'm concerned if it's flat. They're saying a decrease in grants. We're talking about our title grants and IDEA. IDEA is your special education federal grant, and title grants are for your free and reduced, lower income, socioeconomic kids. There's some talk about that there might be Title I, but no Title II and Title IV next year. And then there's also talk of having everything just at a 75% rate of our current year. I will tell you a little side note story is that this year, I think we usually apply for our title grants in June, I believe, right? And this year, I don't think we were able to even access the application until August or September. And that's because there's a lot of flux going on as far as what the federal government is willing to fund for education. So this is a huge question mark, and we'll talk about it as we go. We really don't know. And the good news, though, in our charter enrollments, I think 4 out of our 6 students are 8th graders. And so if we possibly go from 6 students in charter to 1, that's a huge savings. Tremendous.
Tremendous job there.
Yeah, I mean,
Excellent.
when I first came to Hardiston in 2016, we had 22, 23, 24 students at charter, and that amounted to, I think at the time, like $250,000. So for every child that goes to charter school, why this is important, the local school district pays that child's tuition at charter, right? And so the goal is, you know, you can't stop anybody from getting what they want or what they believe they want, but the only thing that you can do is try to make school the place where they want to be, right? Socially, academically, and all that. And so through the years, we've really made an effort to make our schools just that, and to have better communication when a parent says that they want to go to charter. What I've done for the past 10 years is reach out to the parents saying, this is news to me, what's going on? How can I help? Is there something that we're doing wrong, or is it something else? You know what I mean? To have that conversation. And over time, it's gotten better and better. So this amounts to real savings over time. And then, and these are numbers that Ms. Verso plugged in as far as the increases and what she's being told so far. These aren't made up numbers from Sue. These are numbers made up from somebody else, pretty much. Yeah, so we're talking about healthcare, dental, prescription, electric and gas, transportation, and this year is a negotiations year. So for anybody who doesn't know, the collective bargaining agreement is an agreement that the Board of Education meets with the teachers union every 3 years. Well, it doesn't have to be 3 years, but we've done 3-year contracts. And the teachers, the paraprofessionals, the secretaries, the custodians, pretty much every staff member besides administration and some other positions fall under that collective bargaining agreement. And then you get together, you negotiate, you figure out, wording in a contract, you figure out what works, what doesn't, what needs to be improved. And then ultimately, it comes down to what are the salary increases going to be, and what are there going to be any changes to benefits. Those are the two big things that people usually care most about is, money and healthcare, right? It's what we all care about most. So that's coming up. We're having our first meeting probably within the month. And, right now that's a question mark.
Is there like a chart for how much it raises, like teachers get a raise, like a chart, like here 5 years, 2% for them, 6 years, maybe 8, whatever? Does that kind of simplify it for us, or it's kind of just?
Yeah, we're getting ahead of the game right now, other than, my point of bringing it up now is saying, like, when we ratify a new contract, right, we can say, okay, we know for year 26, 27, the raise is going to be 3%, right? So we can calculate that in the business office and know, we can predict, we know what that number is going to be for payroll, right?
Is that across the board, 3%? You just make, I know what I'm.
Yeah, but in the payroll office, they have it all calculated out as far as who gets what. I think it averages out to 3%. I don't think it's the same across every single position and years of experience and all that kind of stuff, but that's the number they can calculate, right? And the point of this is saying, if it's 3% or 3.1 or 3.2, that all makes a big difference because you gotta allocate those dollars somewhere. So the more you know, the better. So we have to kind of go into this part kind of open-ended to make sure that we have enough to do whatever we negotiate. And it's all happening at the same time, so hopefully we can make that so we can know what we're doing and have it done at the same time so we don't short ourselves. Staffing, the goal is to maintain all current positions. World language continues to be a trouble spot for us. And there are additional needs or /wants at the middle school. Lunch, recess, and gym support. Those are the areas where, in the middle school, where the greatest number of students are at any point in the day. And I would argue that any middle school in America probably has that as their trouble spot, as far as that's when kids might get into trouble because they're all grouped together and they're letting off steam and they're active, right? So if the middle school can gain a little bit extra support with maybe an extra person, that might be able to coordinate activities and have more supervision, that sort of thing. And BCBA is the behaviorists that we have now on a part-time basis. There are increasing behavioral needs among our very young learners. We're talking kindergarten through grade 2, mostly. And that is, or maybe even preschool through grade 2. Yeah. And, it's issues, problems that we have not really seen before or encountered before. And we need help. We need help. We need to get smarter. We need to figure it out, how to help these young kids. and why they're behaving and acting a certain way. Maybe it's the family support, maybe it's child support, maybe it's whatever. We're doing our best, but we have to keep our eyes on where our needs are every year, right? I always say one thing to the Board of Education. I always say, you know, we start every year, and what you have to do is take a fresh look at all of our students, right? Because the students we have next year are not the same exact students we have this year. We have new kids coming in, we have kids graduating, and we have to look at them in a new light and saying, okay, what are the needs? And what do we have to do? Some years it might be more middle school needs. Right now, I would argue that our youngest learners require a lot of our resources, time, energy, and money to try to figure out what's going on and how we can improve their lives and time here and harvest them. Because it sets them up on the road to success for the entire time that they're in school, even beyond us. And ERI is our emotional regulation room, our behavioral disabilities room. And that kind of goes in line with what I'm just saying. Is we have one room each at the elementary and one room at the middle school. And the elementary numbers are increasing. So it's something absolutely to pay attention to, because that's not a classroom that you can just fill up and keep adding more and more students to. That requires an intensive staff to student ratio that must be very small, right? And without the right programming, students suffer. And I might add, it increases stress, anxiety, and worry among the staff if kids aren't placed properly. So it's something absolutely to pay attention to.
Is that ratio, is it statutory based or codified, or is it just good practice, or where does that ratio come from?
It's all of that. It's absolutely codified in special education law. But then when you get to ERI, it really depends on the students
That's what
in
I'm
that
asking.
classroom.
Okay.
So it kind of overlaps there, right?
And the BCBA increased hours, you said the BCBA is part-time right now? Are we looking at increased hours for a part-time person going full-time, or a second person?
Right now,
Figuring it out.
right now it's saying we have increased needs. So we're not into the nitty-gritty of a second person, full-time, contracted out. These are all possibilities, right? But where we are right now is saying there's probably a need for this. Yeah. These are our most current numbers, right? For our maintenance reserve and our capital reserve. So we can take a look at that. And this is pretty much what we've done the past several years, as far as hopefully this sets everybody on the same page. And what we do now is we open it up for, sorry, Brian. You're good. What we do now is open it up for thoughts, ideas, conversations, and, questions, and we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. From the group, questions, comments, start us off?
I think the biggest thing is, I just want to address within this budget is the concern that you put in there about the increases. And I guess my desire is to maintain status quo, knowing that these increases are there. Like substantial increases that we know are potentially coming with health benefits, unknown increases with personnel. And in light of last year's conversation, and Sue's down there and knows that, that there was just some concerns about the money and how the budget ended up. That's what I would like to see. I mean, I'm not at the point, and I've been up here many times in many years and asking and saying I'd like to see additions of these things, but knowing where we left off last year and knowing where I want to be in April is to maintain the good work that's happening, but also realizing that we are dealing with big increases in areas that are really out of our control. And that's what I would really ask you and Ms. Verso to really explore and look into, to come back here. And I know in one of the slides you did commit to that and say maintain all staffing, maintain all programs. And if we have, and I know this as well, and being on the committees, and our facilities are in need of repair as well too, and that's a bigger conversation that we're looking into with the long-range facility plan and seeing if there's opportunities for improvements in that area. So I do know that we have some funding based off of last month's audit, that there is not much, a lot, but it was there was an additional opportunity that we had unexpended expenditures that we could utilize a little bit more fund balance this time to offset some of those costs. So I know that there's some opportunity there. So that was the only thing I would ask at this point. I look forward to seeing the bigger numbers in February and like how it plays out. I know a lot of it's, I understand the process and I appreciate you been doing this. I think this is 10 years, it's just fluid, but it's just big picture, taking ideas, but then as we go through it in February, it's really nuts and bolts, and I get that. I just would, I would ask as much as possible to maintain what we have and, fix the buildings a little bit.
I just want to remark on that because you hit the nail on the head as far as how we ended last year at the last, not the public hearing, but the one before that, where that was Sue Verso's, not even first full year, because I think she took over in November, say, and thank God she did, because what Ms. Verso was able to do was really take a hard look at the amount budgeted from the year before and all the different lines of the budget and saying, does this make sense or does it not? And in many cases, it did not. And the evidence of that is that you saw lots of transfers every month, right? And what that means is if one category of the budget doesn't have enough to fund whatever, something instructional, then you have to transfer it from a line item that was perhaps over budgeted, right? To compensate for that. And so you're,
So it doesn't paint a clear picture.
Right, it
You're
doesn't-
going from one to another, so, why are you short in one line when you could have budgeted what you
right.
needed?
And the best way to budget, of course, is to have the most predictable numbers that you can have. So developing last year's budget was a huge challenge because the numbers didn't make sense from the previous year. And we discovered that very late. So the best thing that we have, that we can hope and pray for is time. With time, things will be righted, right? And the evidence of that is this year, the transfers have become less and less and less. That means the numbers that were predicted and budgeted for are accurate. That's fantastic, right? So that should give us all great confidence that going forward, we're in the right place. Now, the challenge is making up for the losses of last year to making sure that we can maintain everything that we've worked so hard to secure for these past several years. So, thank you for bringing that up.
Sue, while we're on that, and you don't need, if you don't know now, it's totally fine, you can let us know. I'm curious, with those expected increases, the 18 for healthcare and dental, I know we've talked about that most, but for those other, for prescription, electric, gas, transportation, are those increases typical 2020, 25, 7.5?
Yes.
Or is, I know the healthcare is the wild card, but are the other ones typical yearly increase?
Yes, so the bus transportation contracts increased by the consumer price index. So this year it was 5.81. So they told us to budget between 2.5% to 5% above that. So I can try to go to the middle ground or a little bit higher. But we probably won't know that number for another month. I can tell you now that the utilities are out of control with the 20%, and I was doing some research, and they're suggesting 1.5% to 5% increase. Looking at the numbers now, I'm gonna go a little bit higher on them, just to tell you one of the bills, like the middle school bill is, sees an increase, because especially now in the winter when there's no solar coming through. So if our bills last year were about 10,000 in the winter, they're about 14,000 now. So it is a huge increase in utilities.
Per month?
Per month for the winter, yeah.
That's just this building.
That's just this building. Yeah, and the solar panels, you know, it decreases, it, you know, 'cause we're not getting any solar. But just from last year to this year, it's a difference of $4,000, given the same winter with the solar.
So
The operating on, I'm sorry, go ahead, Don.
I have a question, like, I know you put all the percentages of increases, but can you tell us what the actual numbers are? Like, healthcare, dental, it's $1 million? Like, what are the actual numbers behind the increases, so we can get an idea of what this increase is gonna be? $500,000? I mean, I just roughly calculated $665,000 increase.
We have to go back and look at all the levels that everyone's taken the insurance to put a total number of where it's going to increase, because it'll increase across the board, but I don't have that actual number right now.
Right, so, I mean, just roughly.
Guys, if we can all try to
Just-
talk into the mic so that they
Oh,
can
sorry.
hear.
Yeah, so I guess just rough numbers, because I know like 18% of blood, I mean, it would be nice to know exactly, at least if it's some type of rough number, you know, what that is, what the transport is, assuming it's $1 million, gas and electric, you just mentioned, $14,000 a month. You know?
I don't want to put a number on it, only because I don't want to be inaccurate, and I would rather give accurate information if I could.
But
If
even
that's-
from the based from last year.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'm not able to give that number.
Okay.
But I can say with transportation costs, I can give you this, that partnering with Wallkill Valley Regional High School has been great savings, and I just spoke to the VA again today, and we're hoping to continue, because I would rather that we help out another district than to, you know, pay the co-op at the rates that they give us, plus a 4% administrative fee every month. So it's a win-win for the school districts. So once I have the actual numbers, it would probably be a lot better, that I can be confident in giving you the answers for that.
Okay, so are we going to continue this conversation in committees?
Yes.
About these budgets?
Yeah,
No,
that's nice.
so-
Go ahead, next.
In the past, we've done that as well too, that this is the first one, then there's always budget conversations in the committees. And I think like to address the point, last year you did it, Sue Forrest, you gave us that lovely pie chart
Yeah.
that had the actual breakdown. I believe that was in like February, that was the second month,
Mhm.
where it showed us like how much in last year's budget was allocated, because I remember there were some questions, people, you know, trying to articulate that salary benefits were like the biggest part of our budget, and that definitely demonstrated that. So, I mean, with the healthcare premium like this, I guess it's good numbers, but those are coming from the brokers, right? So like when we had that meeting, one was in November, Donna, right, we met with the gentleman, and we're having follow-ups, I think, right, Sue, and
Yes.
about that as well, too, about potentially seeing if we could do something about the healthcare and the RX too.
They just went out to RFP. That's why I
Okay.
don't want to give a number,
Right.
because I don't have.
We don't know the exact number of what the
Exactly.
premium, so that's just the increase in premiums themselves when you're seeing that,
Yes.
right?
And that's a concern everywhere, not just here, everywhere.
One of the, we had a presentation today, one of our meetings, and the one broker said they work with school districts in Florida, and they had a 78% increase in their state. So he worked it down to 58%. So he was happy.
78.
78%. Yes, and actually, this is actually interesting. So another one of what drives the prices up is not just, it's actually not just the doctors, it's all the healthcare industry merging together, all the hospitals that merge together just become one big, they actually fire the insurance companies if they're not getting what they want. So whereas the insurance company didn't have to, it was kind of like a role reversal. So
Right.
that also drives up the pricing. It's very interesting.
Good, thank you, Sue. Any other suggestions, ideas, questions? Floor is open. Otherwise, I have a few.
Talk about professional?
Yeah, give a raise like to the teachers, does that include the paraprofessionals, or that's like a totally different area? Because we have like a problem with keeping these paraprofessionals, they keep leaving, and I think maybe if we increase their pay, maybe they would stick around. I mean,
Yeah, they're in the same bargaining unit, so when we begin negotiations, like Mike said, we're trying to put together or formal, get some calendar dates on the agenda for both parties. They're in the same bargaining unit, so that would be addressed when we do negotiations.
okay, and also, if we could somehow put in the budget, like, there's some classrooms, like these IEP classrooms, could really use like beanbag chairs or some kind of cushions for these kids to get up and move around away from their desks. They're having a really hard time just sitting in one spot. And a lot of these teachers said they didn't have enough money in their budget to like get like beanbag chairs or some kind of cushion, so they want to get up and read in a different area. They can get up and go to a different area. I just think it would really help the IEP classrooms, or any classrooms for that matter, if, these teachers need something. I don't know.
That's not exactly true, because a teacher's budget isn't defined by a number traditionally. It's designed by what their wants and needs are and what they actually put in the budget.
Oh,
And then all of those numbers compete against all of the other wants and needs in all of the classrooms, right? And that's how it's, you'll see in some classrooms, 1 year, 5 classrooms might get this, and the next year 5 classrooms might get this. You know what I mean? It's a work in progress. So one of the things that I ask my principals to do, and they do a great job of, is capturing all of the wants and needs of all of their staff members. You're not gonna. Every teacher should champion for everything that they could possibly want for their students in that classroom. Doesn't mean they're going to get everything, because of course resources are limited, right? And then the elementary principal should champion to get everything that she possibly can get for the elementary school. Doesn't mean they're going to get whatever, everything. But everybody should have that mindset of, I'm going to have the best classroom in the world if I have this, 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 and this, and then make the argument for it. And then our goal is to do that if possible. So I like that you bring it up, because it just stresses the need to ask for what you think is best for kids, and we'll try our best to do that.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up the roof. I know maybe that's not part of this particular budget, but the board office has pipes and tubes coming out of leaking constantly. I mean, that's something maybe partial job to fix it, instead of doing the entire school and the entire building. But there are sections where there is continuous leaking happening in our school. And I mean, you've been working under these conditions. I don't think that's acceptable.
I agree with that. That it was on the, it's on one of the slides where it said middle school roof. And I think that was part of the conversation where I brought up about the long-range facility plan about not doing it in, it's like what we did in the elementary school. Remember, we did it in sections, and I think the gentleman came and gave us a nice presentation which had it color-coded of like this is your priority, this is like mid, and then it allowed us to budget and do it over a course of a couple years.
Right.
That's what I was going to ask, but I didn't want to interrupt because you started too, is like with the boilers in the middle school is more of a concern I have than just the roofs as well, because I believe we only have one we're only operating on one.
Yes, so
And
that's, I'm
it's
sorry.
like, and I feel like my question with this was with the, is because the efficiency, we're running a building on one when it's supposed to be using 2, so the efficiency standards of that boiler is not maintaining its actual function, which is maybe causing some of the increases of the payment as well, because it's operating at a lower efficiency.
Yes.
So that is burning holes in our pockets as well too, by now 14,000, when I'm not saying to be substantial, but that's a concern that I have when it's 5 degrees outside in the morning and we only are operating on one boiler. And like when we prioritize a leak in a roof versus 5 degrees outside and we can't operate school, but that's a big ticket item, right? So when we say boilers, I believe both of them need to be replaced, not just one that isn't working.
So if you remember, they had, JCP&L had a rep come out to say that they were going to use a grant. And, you know,
But it
in
fell
November I
through.
had taken over and I revisited it, waiting and waiting. And then finally, January, they just kept calling me and saying, oh, they're pushing it down. So finally, by March, I said, I need an answer because we took the money out of the reserves. And they said that they couldn't go through with it. So the good news is that the money went back into the reserves, so now we did increase it. That number that you see is reduced by 70,000 because we did the air conditioning this year.
Got it.
So we're at 1.2 million, a little bit over. Going with the roofs, like, I actually was having a discussion with Mike, and I realized I have to do some research into the part of the roof from the front of the building where it is leaking mostly, because I don't have a lot of the roof background yet. There's quite many files of the roof project, but I did notice that where all the leaking is happening is where they put the coils, the heating coils. So I don't know if there's a way to, you know, get someone out just to see what it would replace that. Also for someone to come out for the boilers again. So we're gonna try to address as much as we can with what we have.
Right.
And, but that definitely is on my radar. The boilers are '1 on my radar, and then that part of the roof. Because I think that if we could just piecemeal it and maybe start there, that's the majority of the problems, that part of the roof.
If we can start to consider some of those things, you know, within constraints. We have 1.2 in the capital reserve right now.
Yes.
We could fix a couple of those things.
Yes,
You know what I mean,
and
and get
that's-
some of it done. And it just, that's where I thought like that, you know, I think that was part of why we added that goal in of number 5 of the finance facilities piece of like doing things right now, which we can, but then also there's a bigger picture and conversation of like, if we can't do it now, that this is gonna deplete our capital reserve, how do we address these other things that we can't do, and what are the other options that we have to do moving forward? I think we should get on it, especially with Mr. Lenz retiring as well too, right? So like, that guy knows about the roof more than anybody. So, taught me very well in the last year about it. I think that maybe if you could come up, we could talk about that in finance,
Yes.
facilities committee, and then proceed with that, I think too. Because that's something that doesn't impact the taxpayers, it's like, you know, it's using the funds there. It does show, just for everyone there, why the increase of like, our budget went up. That's why Mike said it, and then you just said it too. Our budget went up last year because we did the air conditioners. So the total operating budget went up because we used money from the capital reserve to a major, big project at the elementary school. And I think it's time to start doing the middle school, like you did it. You said, Mike, we've given a lot of love to elementary, which definitely needed it. And then like, you know, we're like prioritizing, right? So,
What was the boiler again? Was that like 39,000 for boiler?
They almost, well, they had taken out 300,000, that would have been our share. But it was over $1 million
for the two.
for the two, yes.
I remember that, 300.
Yeah.
So the 300 went back.
Any other questions?
Well, one
Yeah.
thing, I mean, I just might as well throw it out here, the home ec classes, I know we got rid of them in the middle school, which I thought that they were excellent. I mean, like my kids went through them, and everybody that I know that had these home ec classes, they provide great future resources for the children, teach them how to take care of things and safety and everything else. Maybe there is a possibility to bring it back.
Most likely no, because of what I said at the last meeting. I think it was probably 6 or 7 years ago when the program went away. And because the part-time person became a full-time employee in Butler. And the state of New Jersey does not have that certification anymore, family consumer science. So,
Would that be like that they left us, we didn't leave them?
What was that?
Like the state left us, we
Yeah.
didn't leave them, right?
Yeah, right.
They shut the program down, not
right,
us.
right, the state who deemed, you know, I guess what was important and not.
Right,
Don, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a great,
parts-
great program, but we can't teach a program that we don't have certifications for.
Right. Now, can the parts of that program maybe go into, let's say, math to, teach children how to, a cup of sugar and a cup of that, and actually have a hands-on experiences, so it kind of mimics the home ed experience with other classes?
You have to explain that more, I guess.
Well, I think what you're saying is like, can we have a class that's like, you come in like a home, what do you call it, home what? Home ed class that we actually come in and this is 2 cups of butter and then you make it a cake, kind of thing, like the hands-on, right? Is that what you're saying? No?
That's what I'm saying, but it can be implemented or, into other subjects. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
It's just a thought, like, since you're saying certification doesn't exist for that program, can the good aspects of that program be incorporated into other subjects?
It was a special, right, Mike?
Yeah.
And I think it has. I'd say this is just my kids going through it. Like there was STEM, like it was a special. So rotating through it, there's like a STEM special, robotics, that kids went through here too. It's not cooking or, you know what I mean, sewing. I remember going through the program here too with Mrs. Devine and making my penguin, like my pillow, and like doing that, and like her making and showing us there too. And those were good experiences. I have it's good stuff. I think I still have it. So it's like, and I remember actually in 8th here, and there was the note person here doing it. So I guess the challenge is not just there, but it's just in general finding teachers, things that we've talked about in general, like finding not just the right person to lead a program too.
oh, wouldn't that be money too, Mike? Wouldn't it be money for that?
Yeah.
Can't find a world language teacher.
Yeah, we can't
Right.
find a world language teacher too, right?
And speaking of areas we can't find teachers, I wanted to circle back. Good segue with STEM. I know we've talked about the middle school STEM experience for students over the past couple of years, and I know you've tried different measures there and struggled to teach. And I actually think that was one of the areas at the very end last year in the budget that we had to kind of pull back on because of the fiscal situation we were in. So I was hoping you could provide us with kind of an update on how that's going this year. One of the areas that like I've said in prior years during this meeting and other budget meetings and other committee meetings, etc. Extraordinary strength in the district at the elementary school in this area, state level leadership with Mrs. Roman and what she's done. Looking for ways to continue and expand that so that the middle school experience here builds on that. So how's it looking this year there, and what's your thought and feedback on that?
I think there's been great improvement. We've increased, well, for this year, the configuration is, many times we have 3 teachers in there at once. And we've played with different, whole group instruction, rotations, different things going on at the same time. We've coupled that with an outside consultant, what's it called? It was STEMbridge Consulting, but now I think it's called Elevate. And what they've done is provide us with like a framework for grades 5 through 8 that meets all the standards of STEM standards, and what those stations, rotations, and activities might look like in a middle school environment, and how you might build from 5th grade through 8th grade, right? And we had that document written and presented to us, and then we recently had a follow-up with, with all the teachers and the principal and myself saying, okay, what has it looked like so far? What are the trouble spots? Where have you, gained some traction? And then that gave me another opportunity to say, now is the time to look at that framework for grades 5 through 8 instruction in STEM, and saying what is required in the budget to give us more tools and resources to make those activities come to life. So it's really been, this year's been really, like we're in the past where it's been more, let's dedicate a class and time to doing this, and sort of, for lack of a better term, winging it. I hate saying that, because that's not the way we like to do things. but to having a more defined scope of what we're trying to do, right? According to the state standards and the student experience from people who are smarter than us in doing it, right? So this year is really an educational experience, and I think it's much better than it was last year.
Okay.
And the idea is to keep it going in that direction. We get to be really good at this. You know, we don't have a resident genius at the middle school that can just take it and do it. You know what I mean? So what we're trying to do is educate the people that we have into creating a better experience. And I think everybody's on board with that. It's just a learning process.
Well, right now, just looking at the numbers for every increase that you just indicated, the payroll, 180,000 estimate, insurance, about 180,000 estimate, transportation, another 180, and electric, about 85,000. That brings us to $625,000 increase above, let's say, last year. This is just a rough estimate. Even if it's $500,000, that's still a lot of money. So that's what we really will be working about in this budget.
I had a question about when will the increase, I know it started at 24, I think you said it was up to 90 for pre-K. When will the increase in student enrollment from the pre-K start to be factored in our state aid? Or will it be?
I'm not sure. But you have the-
Or I don't know, maybe it won't be. I'm just curious with, it should demonstrators show an increase in student population as those students move
I don't
through?
think it will, because that would mean you're funded twice.
Right.
Okay,
You know what I mean? Like the preschool expansion aid funding comes from the amount, I'm sorry, my back is to you.
It's a,
But
keep going.
it comes
I
from,
can hear you.
it comes from the amount of general education students in the preschool program. So it's like if we have 90 students and 65 of them are general ed, it's 65 times the number that they dedicate per student, right?
Right. Can I ask a question with that?
But then, just to play it out, yes, but just to play it out, we're already funded for those 65 students. I can't see them adding it to our total population and then increasing it there as well. You know what I'm saying?
We're,
yeah, I was just curious as the overall district population, as those students filter through all 9 grades.
Right.
And the overall, in theory, the overall student population in the district should expand as that phases in.
I think if you did that, it goes to the point where Dr. Ryder was just saying you count it twice, because you're getting your PE funded for like the universe, so like the 80%, so those like 3-4-year-olds. So like last year, we got funding for 90, like an enrollment of 90. So this, I believe next year, that's what you're anticipating, the same enrollment. And then like, and like when they, because eventually that's PA, and then like the state aid funding is like K through 8 or K through 12 or whatever your district is. So the funding itself is to like maintain that universal pre-K for our district for the universe. And then once they come to K8, you're getting the funding for them. So it's not really increasing enrollment, it's just getting them in the building quicker. You know what I mean? So instead of them being in the building kindergarten, they're in the district, building, they're in the district at 3 and 4 years old, which is what the PEA funding is. I guess, and that's my question though with the PEA funding, is that so we utilize you're getting funding for 90 students just like last year. We utilize some of that, and you've done a good job, and I know expanding on this as well too, is some of that funding that comes in can be utilized to offset other operational budget funds, which then allows us to reduce that budgetary fund. I know you've done this in the past, like allocating certain percentages of certain employees. You know what I mean? So you just mentioned in the conversation about the needs of increasing potentially a BCBA and like hours. That's PEA funding right there. All the therapies that exist in there. And that goes to the point too of like electricity and funding for those buildings and where those buildings are, where those students are housed, right?
They don't allow that.
But they allow personnel.
Personnel, yes, but
Like,
not
so a percentage of the BA, a percentage of the supervisor of director.
Yeah, to that point, I'll tell you that last year is a great example. Every year, I increase the percentage for another staff member a little at a time to be absorbed into the PEA budget. But then I know last year I had to remove like 5 or 6 individuals when it was kicked back from the state saying, remove this, remove this, remove
Okay.
this. So it's not going to stop me from trying again.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to include as much as possible because you're not going to get it if you don't try.
Right.
And then it's going to be, you know, the overseer's responsibility to say yes or no. But I will continue to keep trying to do that. Absolutely. And it's legitimate because all these staff members that I put into the PEA budget has a hand in making that PEA function or that preschool function.
Agreed, and that's why I said it's not a scam.
It's not at
I'm
all.
not trying to say to scam the system here, I'm just saying to really.
Why did you just
fund
wink
it.
at me though?
It's like,
I'm just kidding.
like, I'm
Kidding
blinking, I'm
camera.
blinking, I'm blinking. I just feel like, but like an increase of 90 means the increase of percentage.
Yeah.
So there's more enrollment
Yeah.
of students that are in there.
Yeah.
So we continue to do that.
Now we try. We try and until no, we're going to keep trying.
And just kind of piggybacking on this conversation for a second, because, and bear with me, the PEA funding, I still find a little bit confusing. But how does that work? I know you said the PEA funding is for 90 gen ed students for the universal pre-K. Where is the line if a preschool student is still special ed? Is that still funded by IDEA? Or is there some component of the PEA funding? Maybe it really is as confusing as
It is confusing. It is confusing. It's even confusing between like me and the business office because it's like you're really dealing with 2 separate budgets that somehow get integrated at the last stage. So it's very strange because, right, IDEA and the local district are supposed to meet all the funding requirements of special education students in preschool, right? We don't get $1 from a special education student in preschool, right? So, but that number still has to be accounted for. So I'm going to make up this number. It's just a round number. It's 15,000 something, but just say it's 15,000. So you get $15,000 per student in your preschool, right? But only general ed. So for the amount of special education students, right? Say there's 15 special education students, whatever, right? 15 times 15,000, we have to account for that in our budget, but that does not come from PEA. From that budget, we have to still have a line item that says we're going to fund 15 students times $15,000 to be in preschool, and we have to figure out that part on our own.
That comes out of the general budget and not the PE.
Right,
So-
right.
Oh, so it's not funded by IDEA per se, it's just,
Well,
that's the funding we get as part of
there's
contributions.
components of that are funded, but yeah, but we have to.
So how does it, because this is, say a child is referred mid-year or something like that, does that money get clawed back from the PEA money, or how does that work? I don't know if we've run into it or not, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I know there are certain times in the year when they ask for counts. You know, November is the first month in the calendar year where they ask for our enrollments, our current enrollments, what our actual numbers are, and what our projections are for the following year. And based on those projections is where our funding comes from in March
For the coming calendar year.
for the following year. Right. So whatever we submitted this past November, that will be our PEA funding for next year. And that might not be perfect, right? That's a projection, right? That's our best guess that we have. So to answer your question, no, it doesn't get adjusted. It hasn't been adjusted yet as far as if that number is accurate or if we're off by 1 or 2. That hasn't come back to, in any district that I know of, to to pay it back or to get more You know, I remember one year, a couple of years ago, I projected wrong, and I projected more special education students. So what that did was, it really gave us less funding and more that we had to budget for locally, you know, for the special education students. But, you know, when the new numbers came out, we only made up that difference the following year in the budget when we presented the actual numbers. I think it was our first year doing PEA going into our second, so it was very confusing.
Any
I guess
other-
that's
go
what,
ahead.
no,
Go
so,
ahead.
because I'm just thinking about it, we're talking about some of that money being allocated to salaries for, you know, the behaviorist, or OT or PT or whatever services that might be supporting the preschool program. Does it make a difference if they're, like if a child is getting that as part of their IEP, or, because that would,
I
then
can't put
not be
anything
from
in there
the
for
PEA.
their IEP.
Right, okay.
Right.
So it just is for general classroom
Right.
support.
Now, you can still use behaviors for general ed students,
Right.
sure. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to fund it totally
Right.
through PEA.
I just had one more question. Maybe I'm like completely wrong, but when you become like a paraprofessional, is there like a class or something that's mandatory you have to take before you start working with these kids with disabilities? Because I just find it odd if people are just coming off the street that never worked with kids before in their life, you're putting them with disability kids, and I mean, that's like a really hard job. I mean, I understand maybe they do a course on how to restrain them or something, but there really should be like a class or something that's mandatory they have to take about like how to actually be around these kind of kids and like how to react with them. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Is that a budget question though? Or like, how does that work?
Yeah, like, I mean, if we could fund something like for a class for paraprofessionals, like when they get hired, maybe they have to take a class as mandatory.
Some type
to
of
work with-
training,
Yeah,
you
like
can
some kind of
prepare-
training, like to
Well,
work with these kids.
We would never, yeah, I mean,
Even
no, it's a great,
children's
it's,
safety.
it's a great question, but I don't see how it pertains to that, but yes, absolutely. I mean, when, I wouldn't call it like a certified class where you're getting credits or something like that, but any paraprofessional goes through, meets with all members of the child study team, the caseworkers, the teachers. They read the IEPs, they have discussions about what these terms mean and what the needs are of this child. So it's not like, I don't want you to picture a, you know, someone coming in off the street, as you say, and saying, help this kid. You know what I mean? There's a lot more work that goes into it from that. I mean, than that. So I mean, yeah, there's lots of training, and then they also receive CPI, that's crisis prevention training, that deals with de-escalation techniques and how to
So is it like
communicate.
an actual class they take, or?
That
what
is,
it?
yeah.
Oh, okay, so we fund that, like we
Mhm.
pay for that?
Yeah, we have our own trainer and everything.
Okay, I just want to know that, because I was gonna say if they had it into the budget, but if it's already happening, then that's good.
Are all the paraprofessionals CPI trained?
No, not all, because it depends on where their assignment is and,
What the needs.
yeah, what the needs are of the students. We have the means to do, you know, all that, but I mean, it's also a staff member that has their regular duties too. But a great majority of them are.
So what would be the main reason why we can't retain them? And there just seems that we're always hiring new people and people are leaving from that.
Yeah, that goes back to Dana's initial thing with, you know, when we do negotiations, can we pay more? That was one of the things that we tried to address last negotiations too. You know what I mean? You take a small amount and you try to increase more, and then hopefully at the next negotiations round, you do it again. You know, I'll say to anybody, paraprofessionals have some of the hardest jobs here and they get paid the least.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I think we're all speaking the same language and no one's kidding themselves and saying that they're being paid enough. They aren't.
And much like the teacher shortage in other areas too, this is another area where it's not just a year thing with paraprofessionals and pay in other districts too. It's just they should be paid more.
So we would
So you have any? Go
I would
ahead.
say that's, that's probably our main reason why we're not retaining them. Right? Because they may get offered more money somewhere else, and it's really about the pay. You agree on that?
What was that? Is there being?
The reason we're really not, like, try to, like, is there a problem here, or the reason, think about it, people are moving on is because they're getting on their pay?
Absolutely, we're not competitive enough. You know, I mean, you know, you want to make any job, whether you're, you know, any job at all, superintendents, cashiers.
I got it, I'm just trying to
you wanna make
clarify,
it-
that's the main
You
reason.
want to make it as attractive as possible, you know, and one of the first things people look at is, you know, is it worth my time? Or can I make the same amount of money without, you know, working this hard, kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a big deal. Absolutely.
So with the current budget, are we also keeping everything that so far we've had from the previous years, or are we cutting something out of our budget?
One of the slides said we were trying to, you know, going to maintain, that's what our current goals are.
I have two final questions. Sue, I was curious, or even Mike too, with change in leadership at the state level, and maybe we don't have to determine this tonight, but I know in prior years we've tried to align meetings with the release of the state aid and when we're approving, and I don't know, I don't honestly know if there's anything postponed there because of the new governor coming in today. Is that date still consistent with prior years?
They told us today for March 19th is to send it into the county for
Okay.
the budget, but they might push it back to the 26th, but it's still going to be budget approved by the county by April 20th, so.
But as far as the governor's address, when we know.
Oh, yes,
Was there
I'm
anything
sorry.
about that?
No, yeah, because I don't know if she may need a couple more
Yeah, they
weeks.
told us today probably about a week, so
A
usually.
week delay? Okay.
Do we know when that is? When's the state of the state address?
They're thinking it would be the first week of March.
Okay. But I know we have March 17th.
March 17th
right?
is already.
Yes, that's why they were thinking if it comes later, then they have to push the budget to the 20th instead of, to the 26th, depending on when her state of the.
Okay.
Okay, so we just need to stay tuned for that March
Yes,
date.
so as
If
soon
we,
as I find out.
okay, so we may, just for everybody, just for planning purposes, we may need to make an adjustment in March based on that date, like we've had to do in prior years. And then the last thing, and again, I vaguely recall this from like, maybe like the early 2010s or late 2000s when there was a similar spike in costs, that there was, and maybe this is something we've done here and I don't remember, that there was ability to get like free energy audits for like big spaces like this to see if there's ways that we could work internally to potentially or passively cut down on some costs. I don't know if those programs still exist or if that's anything that we've done here in the past,
I
but
believe that was what was part of that grant from GCP. Now they came in to do the energy audit and they were offering us the money through that grant. But
so that was just the thing last year?
I believe so. I think it was just for the gas, but
Okay.
I'll double check on that.
Okay,
That's when they bailed out.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that,
You're
Sue.
welcome.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
How do we continue with this dialogue? It's going into committees?
Yeah, we'll talk about this in committees, and I know in prior years, I see Mike taking notes here. I know Mike and Sue have taken input from all the board members, and then as they receive more information over the next several weeks from locally, from the different stakeholders here in the building, and then from the state, and more clarity on some of the other questions that we had today. I know our next budget meeting in February, there'll be more information about it, but yeah, we certainly will continue to talk about this in committees, and I would encourage you guys too, if anything else comes up, just stay in contact with us and to continue to inform Mike and Sue as we go through this. And then, especially for Kelly and Dana, next budget meeting, there's usually a little bit more information on firm numbers, and then you guys take this information and solidify it and summarize it so that we can, as a board, take our input and then put that in symmetry with where we are in our fiscal situation at that point when there's more information than we have now.
Yeah, what I'm going to do with the notes that I have, and I'll compare them to Sue's notes, and we'll put together a summary of all these notes and get them out to the Board of Education for all of you to review and see if they look accurate to you, or if something, or if not, that's corrected, right? And then, as Brian said, actually there's a lot more information at the February meeting. February meeting has a lot of the nuts and bolts as far as we're 1 month closer to hopefully getting more accurate information as far as increases or decreases, right? There'll still be some huge question marks. One of the biggest ones will be state aid. That's always the last, you create this different versions of the budget, best case scenario, worst case scenario. What if we get more? What if we get less? What if we get flat, state aid? And then, the governor does her address, and then a couple of days later, the numbers come out, and then it's usually a sprint to the finish as far as taking that last question mark and inserting it into the budget and see how do all of our plans look when that final question mark is inserted, right? And that's our goal between now and then, is to get as close as possible to making that work with whatever that number is. So in February, we'll have a lot more numbers and have a much deeper picture of what we're trying to do here.
Great. I know I've said it before too, but I do want to commend you and your staff. The savings with the charter tuition, that number coming down from what it was to what it is now, says a lot about what's being offered and what is happening here. To have those students here, to not have that tuition paid out, and give those students the experience that they have here. And no offense to any other school anywhere else, but that is just a tremendous savings to have financially and student experience wise. So I do appreciate that. I know it's something we've talked about for many years. So thank you. Anything from anybody else? All right, thank you everybody for your feedback tonight. Moving on to public comment. Any public comment? Yes, come on up. Please state your name and address, please.
Now you're gonna know, oh, is it on?
There's a little switch there.
Oh gosh, this is awkward.
It's all right, we all went through it too.
Testing. All right. So, now it's not gonna. If you're judging me, you should come up and do this yourself. Anyway, my name is Amanda Sanders. I live at 12 Lodgepole Lane in Indian Field. 5th grade teacher here, yay. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for all that you do here. It's 8:30 at night, and I appreciate all that you're doing to try to do what you're doing for the best of our students. So thank you, first of all. And second of all, maybe that speech would help kind of segue into, I know there's a lot of questions ahead with budget. But I was just curious to see, or if you were going to consider maybe perhaps like upgrading our language arts curriculum, because it's been since 2017, 18, and if that could be considered, and if you could consider teachers and their expertise, that would be great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Maybe that's something we
Thank
can bring into the curriculum committee?
Yes. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. We will be moving into executive session to discuss district leadership. I anticipate maybe 45 minutes-ish. No action will be taken afterwards. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
All right. Second?
Second.
8:34. Okay.
No action.
No action afterwards, no. So we'll come back here and close, but no action afterwards. All right, thank you, everybody.
Be on the loop for the other.
All right, make a motion to return to public session at 10:40. Do we need to do roll call still again or no? All right, please call it.
Mrs. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Demsack?
Yes.
Mr. Drellick?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman is absent. Ms. Kelslick?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucarelli is absent. Ms. Murata? Absent. Mr. Riley?
Yes.
And Ms. Stoll?
Present.
Okay, with no action being taken or discussion required at this time, I make a motion to
Second.
close the meeting at 10:41. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.